음, 음.
Hi, Patrick.
Hey, how are ya? There we go.
Doing better
I don't know where I have my pen. Now I don't know what I do with it. How you doing today? Other than like a little bit of congestion.
now. Better now. I need to take my medicine
Yeah?
every hours or I feel like shit. But
Really?
yeah, it was a
So
tough.
what do you have to take that you have to take it every hour?
No, it's and we call it antigripal, so it's like a anti-inflammatory, antihistaminic, for the coughing.
Okay. Got it. Got it. I think
Yeah, if I
uh I
don't
think my
take it, I start
girlfriend made
feeling
like
like out.
okay. I think my girlfriend made like this organic like onion and honey cough
That's
medicine
great. That's
yesterday.
good. I've been drinking also tons of um orange juice with curcumin and honey with chamomile.
Okay.
I like that.
All right. Well,
My throat.
well, perfect. So I think this is an education that I am certainly lacking since I've been at the company, but to your compliment is how everyone discusses your passion for it, and then what I've heard is how incredibly important this is, and how we have to do a better job of offering it to potential patients.
Yes, totally.
So why don't you start me off, as I am someone who is interested in longevity, optimal health, feeling great, performing great. And what I'm afraid of most is eventually my hormones are going to change. My gut's going to start failing me, which is going to make me feel horrible. And all those things that make life
Yeah, those
wonderful
are
for
like
us. Tell me.
the basic ones. So we usually introduce patients to functional medicine, telling them that traditional medicine is great at treating symptoms in treating certain diseases, but it's not of use until you really get sick or you get injured. Well, on the other side, functional medicine is more on the preventive and proactive approach of health. So basically, taking health into your own hands and your own means to help you get there where you want to be. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be feeling sick or feeling, like you're not at your optimal to start working with functional medicine, because the idea is um to target prevention. So we start by running several batteries of tests. So that's very interesting, because another pillar of what we do is education. So most people don't know, and they don't have to know, medical terms and understand lab work and, how the body works, because that's something that you learn some biology in high school and, through your education, but you don't really understand it unless you go to medical school. So for us, it's also very important to educate patients on how all this lab work and different testings correlate to the clinical symptoms that they have or to their overall health. So we start by running this, very complete battery of tests. We do biomarkers in blood. We also do some physical biomarkers if the patient comes to the clinic, like, skeletal muscle mass, grip strength, and then we do some more specific tests if it's required according to each patient's goals and symptoms. We can do specific tests for hormones. We can do specific tests for neurotransmitters. We can do tests for organic acids, for example, for heavy metals. And we can also do some tests for gut. So we can see if there's dysbiosis, like SIBO. We can see if there's inflammation in your gut, if there's maldigestion and all these things. And with all that information, we sit down with the patient and we go over each and every result. Okay, so we look at each result and then we look at it at the whole picture. So to really understand what's going on, and this is really, I think, a key point on what we do and why patients really like it so much, because no one, and they tell us this all the time, no one has never taken the time to explain this to us. So they just, traditional physicians will just look at the labs and the results, and they will prescribe something that they don't tell you why they're prescribing that something or why it's important for you to take that something. So I think that's like key for the program, that we really sit down with them. We actually have the big screen on the conference room where we display the lab work, and then they can go with us, we can go together over everything, so they really understand what's going on and why this is important to measure and why that's important for their health and how that impacts, the rest of the other things and how that correlates with their symptoms. Like, for example, if they come and, they have normal fasting glucose and they have a normal HbA1c, so they've always been told that they're perfectly healthy and they don't have any risk of prediabetes, for example. And then we do other testings and we measure other biomarkers. So we measure insulin. And then we've had several patients that come with perfect fasting glucose and perfect HbA1c, but insulin is over the roof. So we have that like key biomarker, and we can tell them, okay, so this is why you're not able to lose weight. This is why you feel bad after you eat carbs. This is why your hormones are out of whack, your cortisol is out of whack, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they really understand what's going on and why it's so important for them to follow the program. And then after we do this, we will prescribe, all the different supplements and things that we can use. For example, we can use peptides, we can use Saxenda to help with weight loss and insulin resistance. We can use some other peptides to help with body composition or cognition or with the thyroid, whatever it's necessary. And we can also use bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. So patients will receive everything. They will start using it. These are very simple things to use. The most complicated ones will be like peptides. And we will follow up as much as it's needed. So, if the patient needs to follow up every month, like if we need to do it monthly, we'll do it monthly. If the patient needs follow up every 2 or 3 months, we'll do it every 2 or 3 months. At the beginning, it's usually more strict on the follow-up. So we'll do it every 4 weeks. And as the patient begins to understand how everything works and begins to feel better, then we can do it every, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, depending on each person. Right now, the program is 6 months. So it's not a year anymore, it's 6 months. So that's important because of the budget. And during those 6 months, we will accompany the patient from start to end. So we like to look at ourselves like the guide, but the patient is in charge of making the decisions and taking the supplements, and they have to have the right mindset, which is something that we work on as well, to see the optimal results. So we're just like the guides and they are the ones making the decisions. That's why it's so important to educate them and to help them understand what's really going on and why it's so important to make all of these changes. And then we also start implementing the part of the functional nutrition. So we work with Ana Paula, she's a functional nutritionist, and she helps our patients with that aspect of health as well, which is fundamental, because that exercise, nutrition, and sleep are non-negotiable for health and longevity. So those are fundamental pillars of every plan. So Ana Paula helps patients. It's not like a traditional nutritional consultation where you will talk about, calories and the macros, and she'll give you like a meal plan according to that. No, it's mostly talking about eating habits, why you eat this and why you eat that, and what foods and how to sort of manipulate foods to work on your side. So she'll help you understand how it's better to eat certain foods, how to combine certain foods to get the most out of it, to reduce that glycemic index, how to eat protein, to, build muscle, when to eat it, all those important things that people don't know, even physicians, even for us, it's hard to understand sometimes because it's very specific, like recommendations that can make a big difference on the long run. So this is lifestyle. It's not like we're going to give you a diet and you need to follow that diet. Actually, we don't like using that word because it has very negative connotations for so many people. So it's mostly about helping you change the lifestyle and start doing the right stuff. And once you begin to feel better, like with all the supplements and the peptides, if you're doing peptides as well, once you get to feel better, you start doing everything better as well. So you have like that stimulus to start eating better, to start exercising a little bit more, focusing on your sleep a little bit more. So it's like a virtuous cycle, sort of speaking, and one thing leads to the other. And that's the nice part of this functional program, that we're sort of have that ability to accompany the patient a little bit more throughout the whole process to get them to their goals, whether it's to improve body composition, whether it's hormonal balance, whether it's to reduce, the use of certain medications, whether it's to improve sleep, you name it. There's so many different goals that people can have. And the good thing is that this functional medicine is so malleable, and so it can fit anyone, like no matter the age, no matter the comorbidities, no matter the preferences, we can always find something that will work for you.
Nice. Okay. So that was a good overview into this. So based on like everything that I've seen so far, is how come this isn't like a core offering to what we do? Because I feel like the tests that you run would give our patients a lot more insight to why the treatments that we offer are so incredibly important. And if we always start off our discussion when they're like, well, how long does this last? Like, am I going to be growing younger forever? Right? It's like, no, not really. Because if you go home, sit on the couch, eat McDonald's, fail to exercise, and your life is an absolute shit show of stress,
Exactly.
it's all for naught.
And that's actually how I started in the functional medicine world, because I have almost 2 years working for RMI. I've always been very like a health geek. Like I've always been super healthy. So since a very young age, because of my background, I was raised in Guanacaste, so a rural province of Costa Rica. Very healthy parents. My parents are vegetarian, and there was no like fast food chains in Guanacaste. There were no malls or commercial centers, so everything was like playing outside, eating organic, and like a very, very healthy lifestyle. So I grew up with that, and I brought that with me when I went into med school. And then it's really shocking how in med school they don't teach you any of this. It's just like diagnosing diseases and treating diseases, not even diseases, symptoms. And that was really like a bummer for me. And I started researching about functional nutritionists, and I met Dr. Lizano, who's been doing this for many, many years. So we started incorporating this into RMI. And that's the idea. We want to do this for every patient. The thing is that it's, number one, it's so time consuming, because we really like key to success in these programs is that you are there for the patient whenever they need it, like you're doing very close follow-ups, and you're retesting very often, like monthly for some people. So that's very time consuming compared to regular like program or treatment that you'll do lab work twice a year or something like that. And then it's also very extensive lab work. So it's not only time consuming, but it's resource consuming. It's very expensive to do this for everyone. So our goal is to incorporate this hopefully for everyone in the future, but we're starting to implement it as a pilot, separate from the rest of the programs, sort of not like forcing every patient to join the program, but the ones that want to join the program can join the program now. But of course, we want to make it available for everyone, because that's the other thing. Functional medicine and health, like on general terms, health is something that you cannot force upon people. They need to be ready to do it, and they need to have the proper mindset to undergo this pathway, or to take this pathway. So if it's something that you force people to do, they're not going to do it correctly, and they're not going to enjoy the ride, and it's going to be something stressful. On the other hand, if people already have like that goal and that idea and that way of thinking, we get really, really good results. So we have many different types of patients. I would say that half of them are, really into health and into getting better. And those are great candidates for functional medicine. And half of them are, as you said, very wealthy people that work a lot, and they have the money to spend. So they want to try and find a quick fix, and with stem cells, they can find it for a couple of weeks, but without, the lifestyle aspect or the lifestyle component to it, it's not going to last very long. But it's I think that's where it will depend mostly on the patient and what they want to do, because you cannot force someone like, I just want to have an infusion and an ortho treatment, and okay, but we need to do this functional treatment prior to that, and it's going to take, this much time and this much effort, and they're gonna be like, no, I just want to do this, and I'm really healthy. Everyone says they're really healthy. It's amazing how almost everyone has some health issue, but if you ask them, they're always super healthy, and they just don't want to invest the time. And then there's the other half that, like I was telling you, that are really into health and actually that know a lot about, what we could call biohackers. But then from this other half, like half of them are already on a functional program in the US, call it Fountain Life, or call it any other clinic of functional medicine, or call it they have their internal medicine physician, and they have their nutritionist, and they have their personal trainer, and they have their personal cook, like chef and whatever. So they're like already doing all this stuff, so they say like, no, I'm pretty good with what I'm doing right now. I'm not interested in a functional medicine program. And then there's like the other fourth who have no idea what functional medicine is, or have heard about functional medicine, but they're never found like the right place to do it. So they come to us. And there's also, we've seen that as well, which is very motivating. And it's that some people from other places in the US, they say like, I want to have everything in the same place. So I want to have my, my stem cell treatments, I want to have my nutrition, I want to have my physician, everything in the same place. So I don't have to be talking to different people and going to different places. And so they come to us and we do everything. So we do all their, all their medical care, we do all their, the functional part, the supplementation, everything. We do the stem cell, and we can do the nutrition now. So that's like a big like niche for us.
Yeah, no, it's that sounds pretty good. So like going back to what you were saying before, so we work with a nutritionist that we put the patients in touch with, like once we have the results back.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
So the nutritionist is available for anyone that needs it and wants nutritional advice. But for the functional program, we can you hear me?
Yeah, it's my camera just shut off. I'm gonna put a chart. You can keep talking. I can hear you. I just got to put batteries in.
Okay. So it's available for anyone that wants nutritional advice in the program or not. And for the functional, we usually always use the nutrition support, and for more specific things as well. So there is like, people talk about diets and you think like paleo diet or the keto diet, but there is more like medical diets. For example, you can do an anti-inflammatory diet. So for conditions like Hashimoto's, which is very common in women, or any like autoimmune condition like Cushing, or ulcerative colitis, all these things, like if you incorporate an anti-inflammatory diet for a couple of months, because this is a very strict diet, for a couple of months, people really see the difference, and you can really reduce those inflammation levels almost back to normal so you can later reintroduce foods and have a better response. So that's
Okay.
something that works very well with people with autoimmune conditions, for example, or people with metabolic syndrome. Then yeah, there's no like one specific diet that will work more than the other, and it will depend on the person. But then Ana Paula can take these people and start seeing what they eat that has a negative impact in their metabolism. So we can sort of rule out some foods and then incorporate some others and see how they respond. So it's also like anything else in functional medicine, it's very personalized and very
Got it.
like made. So
Okay.
yeah, that part is fundamental and has been really helpful to have Ana Paula now in the team.
So would you say like the most of the patients that take advantage or get introduced to functional medicine, it's because something's off, not looking for something better?
So no, both. So yeah, I would say that the majority have like some sort of issue, like an autoimmune condition, or for example, dysbiosis or food intolerances. And then the other maybe like 30% want to get like, get better. They don't have like any symptom, but they want to, improve their body composition. They want to feel more energized. They want to keep on being as healthy as they are in the future. So yeah, I would say like
Okay.
big percentage have like one complaint or two complaints that they want to treat. We get a lot of people of overweight people. So we
Okay.
get that, or people with gut issues or autoimmune conditions like thyroid. And then the other like 30% is like they're doing
That's right.
sorry.
No, I'm saying because I honestly I forgot that I wanted to ask you something that was
Uh,
about someone that I talked to, and you just said something that triggered me to remember it, and I was like, oh, that's why I wanted to write it down. I didn't want to forget.
yeah. Yes, so um it's a little bit of everything. We've been doing the program for about like what, like 6 months now. So it's a very new program. It's our baby. So it's still sort of developing, and we're finding like better ways to offer this to patients. And each time like more and more patients are interested in the program.
Got it. So, and I'm just gonna like try and play the role of like someone who would be more like geared towards like performance. So I just got my I think Dana just sent me like my epigenetic test back, and this was before I started or came to RMI, and I'm 43, and it says that biologically I'm 33. Now for the last 2.5 years, I've been eating like more of like, I don't want to say like a perfect vegan, right? It's more like the fast food of a vegan, but I guess
Fast
eating
food.
that way is still yeah, I guess it's like it's still better than what I was eating when I was eating like red meat and all that stuff. But like I love Muay Thai, I love jujitsu. I like to really like push the limits when I can to like working out and stuff. And like ultimately, like I know that eventually does take a toll to a certain degree on like my stem cell count, like the health of my joints and my ligaments. So if I were to come in for functional medicine testing, will that tell me the things that my body rejects versus the things that my body would accept and the better way to eat? Because I don't have a problem eating red meat, right? Red meat's perfectly fine with me. As long as I know that that's what my body is going to respond the best for performance and longevity, right?
Def
That's what I care about. Like,
Definitely. And that's why functional medicine is so cool and so interesting, because you can do so many things with it. And in a way, it's like you're experimenting with your body, because that's what you do when it's a trial and error. There's so many different like schools of health, and so many different diets and exercise routines, and types of exercise that you can do. But that it works for someone doesn't necessarily mean that it works for you. That it worked for 20-year-old Paul doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for 40-year-old Paul. So this is a trial and error all the time, because our bodies are so dynamic and ever changing. So we need to stay on top of this and be as well very proactive and dynamic with our health. So this is something that we can definitely do. And how do we do this? There's so many tests that we can run to see how your body is responding to diet and how it's responding to exercise, from simple inflammatory markers in your blood to measure low chronic inflammation. For example, if you're eating things that your body is not digesting efficiently, that's going to create low chronic inflammation. So we can see a rise in these inflammatory markers. From a simple CBC, like a simple complete blood count, we can see if you have more monocytes and more eosinophils, which are a indicator, like a biomarker, a red signal of gut inflammation, specifically gut inflammation. If we measure neurotransmitters as well, and we see increased serotonin levels, that usually correlates with gut disruption. If we do also a GI effects, for example, we can see how your body is absorbing what you're eating. If your food is producing enough short chain amino acids to feed your enterocytes, which are the cells in your like the lining of your gut that absorb the nutrients. So what you eat needs to feed your body. Like, you need the macro and micronutrients, but it also needs to feed your gut. And that's why keto diet is not very good for the long term. One of the many reasons, because it doesn't have complex carbohydrates, and your enterocytes need complex carbohydrates to stay healthy. That it causes lots of malnutrition, malnourishment, and it can cause diarrhea as well in some people. So it comes from exactly from that. So we can measure so many things. If you have an Oura ring, for example, and you can do a very simple test. Like, you can start, if you change your diet, you can start right after you eat, in 30 minutes, in an hour, check your heart rate. If your heart rate increases, it means that it's your body is needing more. It's more difficult for your body to digest that type of food. Now we have other tools like the levels, that it's actually a continuous blood glucose monitor that you can place on your arm, on your sub-Q, and it can tell us exactly how your body is releasing insulin in response to foods. So you can see, for example, that you're a vegan, which is super healthy, but your body is not very happy when you eat rice and when you eat legumes and when you eat fruits. So
maybe, it is or it isn't?
It is. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't. And we'll see that with the levels. Maybe the body isn't happy when you're eating so much fruits and so much legumes and so much rice, for example, which is healthy. It's free, it's vegan.
You think, right?
Yeah, right. So you think you're doing like very healthy stuff, but maybe for your body is not that optimal. And if you start eating meat, probably meat and veggies, your body will actually like that better. But you can do all this with trial and error and testing and testing and testing to see where you reach that like sweet spot for you. That won't be the same for you necessarily in 10 years or necessarily in 2 years. It varies a lot depending on time, on age, on your goals, on what you're doing. Because if you tell me my goal is to run an ultra marathon in 6 months, then you're not gonna go low carb, for example. You can be vegan, but you're not gonna run low carb. It's like going to create a metabolic wreck. Like, it's just not go together. Same like the other way. You're not going to tell me like I want to start bodybuilding. Okay, that's great, but I'm only going to do a raw diet, and I'm only going to eat fruits and veggies. It may work for some people, but it's very hard and it puts your body under a lot of stress. So it's like, that's why I like to call it like guiding patients, because there's so many things that you can do, and there's so much information out there, even for us, that can be overwhelming. So having like a more medical and scientific guide to what to do and how to do it, and then also measure what you're doing, not only doing it because it's what your friends are doing or because it's what you read a blog, or it's what's hype and you see on social media, does it doing it because of that doesn't mean that it's going to be good for your body.
So when it comes to like the peptides, then like do we recommend a company for it? Do we order the peptides and walk them through? Like right now, like I'm taking peptides, right? But I don't necessarily know if it's what I need to take, right? Like, it's just a matter of like, I mean, I'd rather have the testing done for it, because I guess you're supposed to be using peptides to like balance out where like keep it level, right? If that's the best way of saying it. So like when it gets like this, the peptides bring you back like to sea level, right? Like, yeah, I'm not really looking for peptides to use as optimal performance, but in using some of the peptides that I'm using, my sleep's improved like dramatically. Like I'm able to fall asleep. I wouldn't necessarily, like, I don't have the ring, I don't have the watch or anything yet, but like I'm going to get into that stuff. But like that's, do we recommend the peptides? Do we have a source for the peptides and stuff?
Yes. So we don't usually start patients with peptides on a first plan or on a first intervention. Because peptides are like when you're really, really healthy and you want to take it like to the next level. Or there's some peptides, the ones for body composition mainly. There's some peptides that like can help you get back to balance. But for example, if you use growth hormone releasing hormone peptides, we don't like using those on the first interventions. We first want to start with weight management. We first want to start with the nutritional part. We first want to start testing the hormones to see, if it's the growth hormone that it's actually low, or if it's your DHEA, which is really low, if it's your cortisol that it's like, below, like very, very, very low. So that, because that's all those things we like to get that optimized before giving you something else. Just because with the peptides, you can feel better, but you're still just like masking what's really going on inside. So we first like to start by helping patients sort of optimize everything and optimize hormones before giving any other external like signal or factor that can help eventually or for some time, but then you stop taking the peptide and you go back to feeling like you used to. So we do use peptides, those growth hormone releasing hormone peptides for patients after, we've already optimized the rest. We've already optimized glucose metabolism, weight management, nutrition, and testosterone, DHEA, cortisol, all these things. We can go and, level up to one of those peptides to sort of boost that that growth hormone. And we also do that always measuring growth hormone. So we always measure not growth hormone, because growth hormone has a very short-lived life. So it's very hard to measure growth hormone in blood, but we measure IGF-1, which is what increases when you take growth hormone releasing hormone analogs, and is what helps you with sleep. It's what helps you with muscle building, all these things. So we always measure IGF-1. If you have a high IGF-1, you probably won't benefit from taking a peptide, and they're expensive. So that's something to keep in mind. And then when your levels go, back to high levels after using peptides for a couple months, then we don't like to keep them using continuously. We like to cycle them, as you probably already know, because these are still experimental substances, the peptides, for this purposes. So there's some research that says that if you have very high levels of IGF for prolonged periods of time or chronically, that can increase your risk of tumorigenesis. Because it's kind of an anabolic, it stimulates cell replication. So that's also something to keep in mind. So we're not like giving peptides to anyone, like whoever wants that. We're not doing that. Same with hormones. Like that's why we really select our patients, and what I was telling you about the mindset and wanting to do things right and for the long run. It's not a quick fix. We've had patients that come to us and they just want testosterone, and we tell them, okay, but we need to measure all of this, and this implies, some time, some follow-ups, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, thank you. And they can go and look for someone that will just prescribe the testosterone, but that's not our goal. Like that's not what we're doing, and that's not the image of the clinic, and that doesn't go with longevity and our mission and vision of RMI. So we're very careful with that. And then other peptides, yes, of course, we can use other peptides for immune function, for example, for thyroid as well, thymulin, depending on each patient and the need for using them. But we always try to start with with the basics, because it really doesn't make sense to send like your like, how do you say, there's a saying in Spanish, it's like you won't send something that it's like super powerful and probably not necessary right at the beginning when you have other that are fundamental.
Okay, so we usually say is we say you wouldn't send the military to a knife fight.
Exactly.
Right. Like
Exactly.
you wouldn't send King Kong to go fight your brother.
Exactly. Exactly. That's
Okay.
that's
That's good.
yeah.
I want to transition away from this for 1 second because I want to ask you a question. So a really good friend of mine, they're very financially well off. I'd like to get them down to the clinic because I think there's a massive benefit for them coming there. His is not going to be the driver to get him to come to the clinic, although the benefits are astronomical for him. But his wife has Hashimoto's and hyperthyroid. Now, she has been, to convey exactly what he said to me, she has been miserable trying to figure out what's going on, how to get a handle on it, because she started doing really well, I think like a couple months ago. They went on vacation and she didn't have access to the foods that she was eating at home, and she's yet to recover since she's been back home. She just can't get it. She just can't get it done right. So Dana and I briefly spoke about it. I sent it over. Dr. Rojas included in the response back to me. You were on that. But Dana was like, talk to Dr. Tanoka, because Dr. Rojas, he thought she thought he was going to be a little bit more geared towards like, all right, so definitely we want to do the functional medicine. We want to get some testing in there for any autoimmune condition. We highly recommend the. I'm going to try and use the different explanation of this because I want to stop saying the other one. The therapeutic plasma exchange.
Therapeutic plasma exchange. That's the one.
That's why I don't want to say plasmapheresis anymore. It's an apheresis machine, but I don't want to say plasmapheresis because like it just doesn't. It's like a therapeutic plasma exchange, like that kind of like. I mean, I'm more marketing and sales, right? So like for me, I'd love to have a therapeutic plasma exchange. I don't want plasmapheresis.
Exactly. It sounds more inviting, like therapeutic plasma exchange. Like you sort of, it's easier to understand, like it's self-explanatory than plasma.
So Dana had said that would probably, I mean, I started geeking out on some stuff online, and the advantages to the umbilical cord stem cell infusion, as well as the therapeutic plasma exchange, and then also too is just having a really good understanding of like what's going on internally. Like, just if you could give me some feedback on it, because I'd really like to get her to schedule a call. To actually hear you speak to her about, like, let her explain to us what she's been through, what her doctors are suggesting, because I think at this point right now, and he would probably agree with me, is like, if it gets her going in the right direction and feeling better, is it not worth the trip to come down here? And it's not saying that her doctors are not doing her just, it's that you're not going to get, like, when I looked on the list of what they offer, and you go back to the word we don't like, plasmapheresis, it doesn't fall into it that she's going to be able to get that in the United States.
Yeah, so as you said, like it's probably not the fault of anyone, but it's fine to find someone that has that like integrated vision of what can be going on, and sort of, do those small things that will have a very big impact on health. And for Hashimoto and autoimmune diseases, but especially Hashimoto, um there's so many things that can cause a flare, or like a crisis episode. And this was thought to be, like your body creates antibodies against your thyroid, and it destroys the thyroid, and it's gone. But it has been shown that those antibodies can be on the body for many, many, many years. So it can be, your autoimmune system can get activated by many things, like stress, like as you said, like by certain foods, because foods have antigens in them, like lack of sleep, etc., like medications, many, many things, alcohol, smoking. So what I would recommend, and I think we've done this before, that we don't have like, extensive research or extensive case series of patients, because we're starting this department, but we've treated a couple of patients. I have 2 patients in mind with autoimmune conditions very similar. So with thyroid conditions, and then some autoimmune specific conditions, like consistently getting sick, and food intolerances and allergies and these things. And we treated them with plasma and infusions, and of course the functional part. So measuring all the hormones, measuring the thyroid, but also measuring antibodies, like thyroid antibodies, because if they're high, even though you're taking your thyroid medication and everything, you won't feel right, because there's still damage being done to your thyroid, and that releases thyroid hormone, and eventually you'll have hypothyroidism. So measuring these antibodies, there's actually things you can do to bring those antibodies down. So it's very important to always measure in people with this past history of Hashimoto's. Always measure thyroid antibodies, even though the condition was diagnosed months or years ago. So I would she could benefit from plasmas. So we remove all the toxins, we remove all the antibodies that can be circulating. These are very fast, and they go to the thyroid, and they bind very fast to the thyroid. But when you release some of them from the blood, you can still help, and you release all these toxins and inflammatory markers. You sort of dilute them with the new plasma, so that always helps. And the stem cell infusions, they're very potent anti-inflammatories and immunomodulators, so they can also help sort of bring the immune system a little bit down, so it's not so hyper reactive. And the diet, the anti-inflammatory diet for Hashimoto's, that's like crucial. Is a very, very strict diet, but that you follow for a couple months, 2 or 3 months, and then you can go back to your regular or healthy diet once everything is under control, so your body won't react to any signal. Because if there is a flare, like your immune system is in like hyperactive mode, and it will react to anything. It's like you're in an oversympathetic drive, like you haven't slept well, you have tons of work, and you're like very stressed, and people tell you something in a tone that you don't like, and you just burst. It's just like similar with the immune system, like it's so
Yeah,
overloaded, different like signals and things, that it just doesn't know what it's doing anymore.
got
So
it.
it's helping sort
Okay.
of get that under control with all the different interventions.
So would it be and I'm asking this just because I like where and how this starts. So if we wanted to recommend, if we have a discussion with her and they agree, right? And they're like, okay, well, what we want to do is we want to move forward with functional medicine, the stem cell infusion, and also the therapeutic plasma exchange, right? So if they decide that they want to do that, are they able to get started with us and have the blood work taken in the United States and then sent to you prior to making the trip, or do you prefer to have the blood drawn there? And then how does that work? What does that look like?
So we can do both. I actually prefer to work with our lab. I consider it significantly better than Quest. It's more
Okay.
reliable. We have a close communication with them. So they, if we do the test in Costa Rica, we have all results by the next day. Like everything
Okay.
will
Okay.
be ready by the next day. Unlike Quest, that it takes them like 1 week, and sometimes after 1 week they tell us like, oh no, we didn't have enough sample to run this. Or they screw samples all the time, so we need to repeat them and
Okay.
do Costa Rica anyways. So if they're coming with time, I would prefer doing the lab work, because it's not clearance lab work for the treatments. For example, the plasma, they would have to do it in the US. So
Mhm.
you have to do like fibrinogen and coagulation and all of that in the US, so they can go ahead and do the functional panel in there as well. But I prefer doing it in Costa Rica, just because, if they're doing plasma one day and we do the functional the next day, we can take the blood here when we place the IVs for the plasma, and we'll have the
Uh-huh.
result the next day.
So,
And if
so
you
for
want
and that.
and also the good thing with that is that when we see results, sometimes we want to add something that we don't usually, send on like the regular panel for functional. So
Mhm.
some more detailed hormone or something more in specific. And if we do them in Costa Rica, they save the samples for 1 week. So it's super easy for us to just, pick up the phone and tell Angie from Chandy, Angie, can you add this to the sample? And they'll say like right away, and you'll have it in 30 minutes. So it's very convenient when we do them here in Costa Rica for that reason.
Okay. So when someone has like an autoimmune disease like that, or autoimmune malfunction, or an issue with their thyroid like that, does taking blood work before we do a therapeutic plasma exchange, does that matter, or it doesn't, because we're just taking blood plasma and replacing it, so it doesn't, the blood work coming back first isn't as important?
No, because we take the blood before the plasma. Yeah, before the
Okay.
therapeutic plasma exchange, because that can change the results. That can change the inflammatory markers, for example. That can change some coagulation markers as well. Yeah.
So we want to make sure that it's okay to do the plasma exchange. Um, and so let's say they came out on Sunday, we would have them do the blood work on Monday, get it back Tuesday, and then we'd schedule the treatments then afterwards. Like
So
we would
no,
schedule
for
the
the
treatments.
plasma, I prefer that they do the blood work in the US, the clearance blood work for plasma.
Ah, okay. But the functional medicine panel,
We
you
can
want
draw
that down in Costa
we
Rica.
can draw them in Costa Rica when they're here for the plasma. They place the IV, we draw the blood, and then they do the plasma.
Got
So
it, got it, got it, got it. Okay, perfect.
interfering with the procedure.
Okay,
They
so
can
that
do
makes
the
sense. So they're
functional
gonna.
in the US as well. I mean, that's not an issue. But because of past experiences, I prefer, if they're going to stay for several days and we have time, to do them in Costa Rica, just for that reason, that we can sometimes add some more stuff. And we get them
Okay,
really fast. We get them really fast. And for me, this Chandy lab is more reliable than Quest.
okay. All right, so that's literally, but we would want them to get like their clearance blood work up here, which would allow them to come down there, do the plasmapheresis. Then the next day, if they're going to do the infusion, like we'll let them do the infusion, and then to also go over the functional medicine and the protocols following.
Exactly. Mhm.
Okay, that makes sense. That's pretty good. All right, so let's go back to now let's talk about functional medicine from more of uh I am walking past our booth at the biohacking conference, and someone goes, all right, so tell me about what you do here. And you say, we do functional medicine. And they go, why do I care? Tell me
Yeah.
what you say.
So we do the best of both worlds, really, because I like thinking that we integrate functional medicine, which is all the lifestyle interventions, the supplementation, the testing, like advanced testing accordingly to each person's goals and medical needs. And we combine that with the cellular therapies, that you won't get this quality of cellular therapies anywhere else in the world. So we're integrating the best of both worlds in one same place. So we can actually optimize your body to, create the perfect, not perfect, but like the most healthy microenvironment and milieu inside your body with hormones, hormonal balance, metabolic balance, optimizing the healing capacities of your body, the own healing capacities of your body and your cells. And then we have stem cells. That stem cells come to keep everything on their perfect balance and control. So we can do stem cell infusions, we can do orthopedic procedures, and this will boost your own regenerative capacities. So it's like, you optimize your body in the inside, you have the stem cells, which will help you stay, younger for longer. And then you'll feel better to do all the good stuff. So you'll start, eating healthy, you'll start exercising more. And it's the virtuous cycle that I was telling you about. So you start here and you go here, and then from here, you'll go here back to here. Because you're integrating everything. It's like, this is like a million pieces puzzle. So you can place a couple pieces of the puzzle, but you can't see like the whole picture. You need to place as many pieces of the puzzle as you can. And with functional medicine, you can place the nutritional part, the exercise part, the sleep part, the supplementation part, the precision medicine part, like really staying on top of your health. You can optimize comorbidities, which is a big piece. And then you can add the cellular treatments part. So you can add stem cell treatments, you can add plasmapheresis, you can add the ortho, you can add cognitive, you can add enhance. So we're working at every level of health, because this has a huge impact, not only on the physical health, but also on the emotional and the mental health.
Nice. Okay. I like that. All right. I think so. The only thing I'm going to ask Cheryl to do is send me one of your PowerPoints. So that this way it makes it a little bit easier to, like, I'll have some visual aids and stuff like that, because I just want to make sure it gets included, because there's a couple brochures or treatments that we don't talk about. And one of them being really popular is the functional medicine. And the minute that I brought it up, Cheryl had a big smile on my face, and she's like, DRT.
Yes,
So it was like,
because it's been like, well, like everything at the beginning, I think this has been very word of mouth. Like I started doing it with my patients, at RMI. And then, well, I started like sort of teaching this to the rest of the physicians. So the report reviews were a little bit more, more scientific and, with better recommendations and everything. And then Dr. Lisano joined, and we started doing it to a couple of patients that were really, out of whack. And they started having very good results. So it's the same that with RMI. So it's very word of mouth. So now this patient did functional medicine. So they send us their, their spouse, or they send us their, we had this week, for example, we have one patient, she's very young, like 30 years old. And she came, and she really, like, she had her first consultation only, and she really liked it. So she sent her father, and the father did the first consultation, and he loved it. So he sent his wife. So the wife did the first consultation, everything like in the same week, because they were all like very happy. And I think that the key is that educational part and that explanation part, to really take the time to help patients understand what's going on inside their bodies and why it's so important to do the different recommendations and interventions, and not just like, telling them do this and do that because we know best. It makes a big difference, and it creates like commitment and like accountability for them as well. So I think that's like the key of why our program is so successful, even though there's programs in the US that do this, because Fountain Life does this like on steroids. I mean, they have whole body MRIs, They have like all this like very advanced testing. They have like the AI CTTA for the heart, and they can tell you like your cardiovascular risk at a like very precise level. They have like all these very technological tools that they use, but I think that they are not as good as explaining to the patient and creating that patient relation as we do, because we have that Latino sort of charm. So we're very close to people, like Latinos are very close to each other. So we have I don't know, like I think that's like one of the things that make the program really special. Like we become very close to the patients, and they become very close to us, so they feel that they can really rely on their physician.
Mhm.
And they feel like they have the, they have the how do you say, the wheel in their hands, to start doing the right stuff and making the right decisions for their health. So we see very, very nice results, and patients are really happy. And I think it's basically because of that, because we're listening, and we're helping them go where they want to be.
So I've kind of like, and I don't know if you've experienced it down there, because I don't know if it snows in Costa Rica, right?
What?
Does it snow in Costa Rica?
What?
Does it snow? Do you get snow in Costa Rica?
Oh, snow. Sorry. No, we don't have snow in Costa Rica.
Okay, I didn't think so. All right, so it's really interesting, and this is like what I'm trying to be able to do a really good job when I put this together. So someone who's 35, 40 years old, or even 30 years old, like depending on like, what they're doing, they're entrepreneurs, how hard they're running their bodies, the little sleep they're getting, the hours that they're working, the stress that they're under. It's kind of like it's interesting to actually use my mother for this, but it's a really good analogy. So what happens is when it starts snowing, and it's going to be like potentially 2, 3, 4 feet of snow, right? If you go out there and you start shoveling every like 3 to 4 inches, then you're never moving this massive amount of snow. And like, we didn't have a big driveway. We didn't get 3 to 4 feet of snow, but it's a good analogy. So what we do as far as longevity and even functional medicine is, you may not feel like you need it right now, which is perfectly fine. Maybe you think you're running, as good as you're running right now. And like, you don't need to go out there and shovel the driveway. Like, you're strong enough, like, to do it at 2 feet, and you're only going to do it twice. Right. But then all of a sudden, like, it is 2 feet, and you go out there and you go to move the snow, and it's a little bit heavier than you thought. It got a little wet underneath, right? Some external factor started to affect it, right? And then now it's still snowing, and like, as you're going towards the end of the driveway, because how long you're taking it, now you're moving 2.5 feet, because now it's getting bigger and heavier as it goes forward. And this could have all been removed. You could have never actually hit the point where the snow ever got above 4 to 6 inches, where it's just walking and pushing it out of the driveway. But you chose to wait. Well, look at what we're doing here with functional medicine, because what it is we're not saying that anything's wrong with you today. You may be 120% firing on all cylinders. But what if there is that one thing that's not right now, right? What if there's that one piece of food that you continue eating every single day that's not affecting you now, but we can find out, and we could see through what we do 5 years from today, you're slowly poisoning your system, right? Maybe it was good when you were at 20, but now it's starting to hurt you, right? What if these things? So what typically ends up happening, right, as you think about it, and another analogy, and I'm full of these things, right? So I apologize.
That one's a great analogy. That's
Okay.
the point of what we do. Yeah.
If you play golf, right? So like, as far as like helping the prospect, if you play golf and there's tree lines down both sides, and you get up to the tee box and you get ready to hit the ball, right? You can hit it straight. You've hit the ball straight off the tee, right? But because you start looking at the trees, now when you're getting ready to hit the ball, you keep thinking about how close those trees actually are. And now you're not thinking you can hit it straight anymore. And that's kind of like what it's not that we're trying to do that maliciously, or we're doing it with ill intent because we care about the money more than we care about the person. The problem is, if we're not that dramatic and we don't make things seem that horrific, people won't take advantage of what they can today to avoid that later in life, right? Like what you just spoke about with Fountain Life, right? They just don't give the attention. They have great technology. They can show people things that like they never thought they would ever see in their wildest dreams. But the problem is like if you don't like dealing with people, most people won't continue dealing with them. They won't continue working with them because they're like, ah, I got to call a doctor. But if I feel like that experience I'm having is like, hey, I'm calling Dr. Vale. She's like, she's so easy to talk to, and she like, you know,
Exactly.
she knows about me. Like she kind of asks me how I'm feeling. That's in relation to what I went through with her. I'm feeling better. I feel like she actually genuinely is trying to follow up with me. She's not sitting there being like, yeah, well, you're my fourth call today, and the minute I get done with this fourth call, I have no more patient follow up. She goes, so how you feeling today? Is everything okay? Is your heart all right? Feel good? Right? Like we get to give that. So it's like those are three things that like I took away from this conversation is like because like I don't what we're
Totally.
not looking to do. Like we'd like to save the world, and that's great, right? And you know, Dr. Striano says this great. He's like, listen, we can cure the sick, we can't revive the dead, right? But
Exactly.
optimally, if we can get to people before they hit the illness, it's and because of functional medicine, you're really getting to see things from like the inside out. So like you may be the best person that I've asked this question to yet, right? At 30 years old, you can, I believe, or 40, I'm not 30, so I keep saying it, but I'm not 30. So at 43 years old, right? The things that you're able to see, you're able to slow them down and prevent them from coming, which is ultimately always going to be easier and faster than catching it and trying to reverse it, correct?
Correct. For every disease. I mean, prevention is, I mean, it's so easy when compared to treatments of diseases. Of course, you need to start young and you need to have the discipline to do it. But like, I mean, it call it like colon cancer, for example, like an endoscopy, doing a lower endoscopy. Yeah, you need to start doing an endoscopy when you're 50 years old, and you can do it every 5 years, every 2 years, every 1 year. It's something easy. I mean, it will take you 1 hour, once a year. And if they do it, every couple of years, and they find a polyp, they will take the polyp during the same endoscopy. It's 5 minutes. They take the polyp, they can biopsy the polyp. If it's benign, all good. If it's malignant, then they took out the cancer already, and they'll do another endoscopy in 6 months or in 1 year. And if there's another polyp, they'll take the polyp and you're good. Imagine that you don't do this. This takes 1 hour of your life in 1 year. If you don't do it, and then you start feeling symptoms, and it's hard for you to go to the bathroom, and you're losing weight, and you go to the doctor and they find that you have colon cancer, how much time of your life and money that's going to take to fix that. That's like, for me, that's
Mm-hmm.
a powerful example, because people end up with ostomies. So then you'll end up with a bag through your tummy where you're going to poop. Some people for the rest of their lives, some people for a couple of months, couple of years. But I mean, that's the repercussion. Or you'll have to get chemotherapy afterwards, or radiation after the surgery, and
Wow.
to take another year. And that doesn't mean that you're going to completely heal afterwards. And all of that could have been prevented if you just went to the gastroenterologist and got an endoscopy, 5 years
So
ago.
why So why so I guess so like there's this guy who it's called True North. It's here in the United States, and he does. It's funny because like in the 80s, I don't think that he was able. I think he had the hardest time to get medical insurance, and he wasn't prescribing anything or doing anything like crazy, but he was having people do water fasting, and people would do water fasting everything everywhere from like on a minimum of like 7 to 10 days, all the way out to however long they can go before starvation kicked in, because that was the breaking point. It's like we don't go to starvation. It's like
Uh-huh.
because once we go to starvation, it changes the functionality of the body, and we never want to get there. So they closely monitor you, which is really good. But this guy's cured cancer, liver, kidney problems, diabetes. Like, I mean, the list is like insane just from like water, plus being able to reprogram the dieting habits, the type of food that they're eating, eliminating heavy salts and heavy sugars and stuff like that. So what I guess like I mean, one of the things that and this is like kind of where some of my rabbit hole started down when it comes to like, I don't want to even say longevity. Gary Brecka said this right. You don't have to walk around and feel the way that you feel. You think you have to feel this way, but you don't have to feel this way. And like the stem cells that I got down in our clinic, like I think I feel better afterwards. Like I think like everything, I feel better, like functionally, like the therapeutic plasma exchange, like I thought that was crazy. Like at the end of it, like I'm literally like falling asleep in the chair, right? Because like it's pulling out your glucose and all that stuff. But like the next day, like I was like sitting there and like I just felt cleaner. Like I don't know why, I just did. But I also too was like being like a real heavy drug user when I was younger. I smoked a lot of cigarettes when I was younger. Like I drank a lot when I was younger. Um, I feel like my goal, and this may not be the right way, but the two things that like I want to focus on as an individual is my gut, my liver, and my kidneys, because they're like so important. Because and like even Gary Brecka says it is like, and this is what clicked with me. And if you got to go, like just tell me when you got to go and we'll hop off. But he's like, you take depression medication. He's like, and what it does is it regulates the little bit of serotonin that you actually have. It doesn't increase it, it doesn't decrease it, but it just starts to regulate what's there. However, if someone took the time and energy to do the testing on you that you needed to, so that we can find out what, let's say, what genes in your body are mutated or are not allowing you to process the certain foods that you're putting in your body, we can find a way to get your gut to start now recreating the processes it needs to feed serotonin to your brain, and now you don't need it. Like we're not trying to cure it, we're just regulating a little bit for it, right? Because we want to keep you on this for the rest of your life, right? So like when it comes to like what you do, and the more I've learned about it, and that's why like one of the things is like I kind of like geek out on this with Dr. G, is like with the bioinsurance, like we're putting the MSCs in. Like I think that's great, right? I think that's fantastic. But like to be able to put all those three types of stem cells back in our body for the next 15, 20 years or whatever it is, like plus with the medicine, like it's almost like for the people that have this money is like you have to just start this way, right? Find out what's going on inside.
Regenesis program, functional should be, because we are recommending supplements. So like if we're recommending supplements for Regenesis and they're, the goal of Regenesis is longevity, for me, functional medicine should be included as part of the Regenesis program. Like it's, it's fundamental.
I don't know. So that's what I don't understand. It's like, so and tell me what your opinion is on this. So epigenetic tests, your lab work to make sure you're good to come down, right? And then you come down to Costa Rica, right? Because you're going to sit there, you're going to get cleaned out, right? You get your therapeutic plasma exchange.
So
You get
usually,
your,
if you're doing collection, we don't do plasma on the same trip. Usually we don't recommend, because you remember
oh yeah, that's right.
those are big IVs. Those are big IVs. And some people have very good veins, but most people don't, especially if they are older, if they're overweight, and women. We by default, we have smaller blood vessels than guys.
And you got to be careful. You can't do it while you're menstruating, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it, but you may be a little more decompensated than normally. So exactly. So it's a lot of consideration. So on the first trip, if they're from a Regenesis program, we don't recommend doing plasma and collection on the same trip. Just because, it's like a lot of pricking and poking, and it's hard on the veins, and sometimes we cannot complete the procedure with as much success as we would have liked. And it's not good for the experience, because you have to be poking the patient several times to get a good vein.
And we're not allowed to collect stem cells in the United States and then send them to Costa Rica, are we? Okay. All right, Dr. Tinoco. So let me ask you this question. Do you like being called Dr. Tinoco? Do you like to be called Vale? Do you like to be called DRT?
Vale.
Vale? Okay. I just want to make sure, because Cheryl calls you that, but like, and I have a relationship with Vince. So like sometimes like I call him Vince, sometimes I call him Doctor, sometimes I call him Dr. G. And like, I actually just realized like, usually in the United States, people usually get very sensitive when they're a doctor and they're not called doctor.
No.
So I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, listen, I look forward to seeing you. I will be in there on Sunday. So, uh, once you get in, let me know because I'm going to be there. I'll be there probably around like 3 o'clock, and then I'm going to try and help Chris Ryan like get them all the stuff that they need to get from us. And then I'm just going to be hanging around. So you want to grab a bite to eat or anything like that? Like I will be there. So
Sure. I'll arrive. My flight arrives at 7:26. It lands at
okay,
7:26. So I guess I'll be in the hotel like around 9:30, probably,
okay.
hopefully. I hope migration is not crazy.
Oh, that's right. You're coming through. That's right. I'm domestic. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm from Costa Rica, so that's the tough part. Last time that I went to Orlando, it was like an hour and a half, something like that in migration. But hopefully, it's a Monday. Oh, it's a Sunday, so probably not as many people. Well, it's summer though, right? So I don't know if lots of
I don't
people
think.
are.
I don't. So next. So well, I mean, here. This is some schools are still in and out. So I think you're okay. The big vacation months in the United States are July and August.
Okay, so there's because here they are already on vacation in Costa Rica. They went on vacation this Friday, so today. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, once again, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me, and I look forward to seeing you again on Sunday.
Let me know if you need any help reviewing the brochure once you have it.
I
I can.
do. I do. You and Cheryl are both going to get it.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. And if you need any help with the bioinsurance as well, I know the Dr. G is going to give it a look, but I'm usually the one that is on top of that on a daily basis. So if you want some feedback on that, I'll be happy to also go over the bioinsurance.
All right. I wish I would have known that. We could have just did this on that call too. So let me do this. I'm gonna shoot him a text and see what time he wants to hop on. After that, I'll shoot you a message if you're around. Like I'd love you to hop on because I want to collect the information. So like once I like sit down and start going through design, like putting the information together, I could do it all at one shot. I don't want to have to go back and forth. So that would be like really helpful.
I just didn't want to overstep with Dr. G. And I know he has like all the scientific information like better than I, but I'm the one that is like doing this on a daily basis at the clinic, so I may have some,
Well, now, so let me ask you one question about it while we're on this right now, because this is the part of it that I always forget. Is we collect it, but isn't there something else that we offer with it, or is that the region one, where the region one we offer the buceuticals and the bioceuticals and stuff like
so
that?
for
Is
the
that right?
yeah, maybe just confirm this with Dana. For the bioinsurance, we're doing the baseline testing with the True Diagnostics and the Genova.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a baseline physical assessment. We do the collection and we store the cells. For me, that's
That's it.
what's included. Last time I asked, that's what was included in the bioinsurance. But can you just confirm with Dana about the True Diagnostics and the Genova? That it's still that way.
So what is that? True Diagnostics, and you said, then what did you say after Genova?
Genova is the oxidative stress.
All right, say that again.
Genova is the oxidative stress.
Okay. All right. Because what we do is like, so bioinsurance is actually, we send them out to Senolytics and the Neupogen, right? Well, providing that they're at that age, right? That's 2 weeks before they come down.
We only use analytics if they're over 40 years old.
Okay. If they're close to 40, would we use it or no?
41 and above.
Okay. All right. And then I just want to make sure, you said we do a Genova test.
We do a Genova. So those are the testings that we do for collection patients. It's the True Diagnostics, which is the epigenetic. The Genova is oxidative stress, inflammatory markers that are normal, like from the blood labs, and the physical assessment. So this is the same that some Regenesis 1 patients for the Regenesis one, we do baseline 6 months and 12 months. My understanding is that for bioinsurance, we do only baseline because that we do a report and that's a way of upselling, the program. So we have this information at the beginning that it serves as a hook to do a report for the patients and tell them like, your oxidative stress is not very good, your inflammatory markers are high, blah, 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 blah. And sort of it helps us recommend, the continuous infusions or, a plasma or whatever. So it works as that like upselling in the future, for upselling in the future. So that's why we do so can you just confirm with Dana that that's still how she has it mapped when she sells the program, just to make sure that that's included in the costs? And that's the reason, because we prepare a report even though they're not Regenesis, so we can upsell the other treatments.
Got it. Okay. All right, perfect. All right. Well, again, I appreciate it. I'll send this over to you too when I send it over for it to be reviewed.
Perfect. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye.